Hey, how's it going, man?
Hello, Ronnie. How are you?
Hi, how you doing?
All good. How are you?
Good, good. Doing all right.
Busy days?
Yeah, it's kind of busy getting ready to leave. We start to tour. I leave to go to Europe. Right now I'm in New Jersey, so I leave Saturday.
Very good. Looking forward for the tour.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be really great, man. I mean, we're so excited about this album. Can't wait to get out there and play it.
Yeah. And, let's talk about Higher Ground. When did you guys start working on the songs for the album?
We actually started that sometime around March or April, May of 2024. And
Okay.
then we finished it around June or July, something like that.
Do you guys got together or everybody worked?
Yeah. Yeah, it was well, some parts were done away and then some parts we were all together. So, but I would say the majority of it, probably about 90% of it, we were together,
Yeah.
actually.
And it's always better when you guys are together for writing.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of better. I mean, it almost doesn't really make a difference because we don't actually play, even though we recorded in the same studio and the same thing, we don't often play all together at the same time, just because it's much better to do it the other way. Whoops, sorry about that. It's much better to do it separately because then you don't have to go. If one person makes one little mistake, you don't have to go back and do everything over, so it's a lot easier to just do one person at a time, and it seems to work better that way.
Yeah. Do you remember the first song on the that's on the album that you guys start working on? What was that first song?
The first song, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. I think the first two songs we started working on were Higher Ground and I Will Rise. I
Yeah.
think those were the first two. And they really went through major changes. They're totally different than they started. And you almost can't even recognize the original demo, you know? It's crazy.
This normally that is that the norm in a songwriting process where someone comes with, let's say, the riff or the idea for the song, and at the end, after it's all recorded, it's completely different from the original idea.
Yeah, I mean to some degree, yeah. Because Hans is the main producer also, and he's also one of the songwriters. So we'll do the whole thing, and then Hans will be like, "Nah, this part doesn't work. Oh, I came up with a new guitar riff for this part. Now do this. Now play bass to this part. So here's the new one. So you got to redo your bass parts." So and that would happen maybe three times to the song,
Yeah.
maybe more. And then he still goes back and maybe edits something again later. So yeah, it does. It definitely does change. But those two songs really changed drastically from the original.
Yeah. And you as a bass player, normally, what is the approach? Like on Bonfire, what's the approach for the playing? Because for me, I was always fascinated by bass playing, and I'm very much into the '70s bands, and where the bass was prominent. You can hear,
Yeah, yeah,
every
me too, man.
how. What is your approach when it comes to bass?
Well, I think bass is super, super important. It really makes or breaks the song. People don't really realize it, but just a little difference between you playing quarter notes or 16th notes and the same exact note, just playing it more often or less, or the rhythm totally changes the feel of the song. And the chords could all be the same, everything's the same, but depending on how you're playing it, it'll make the song actually sound different. And my approach is always to just go directly for the song. The bass needs to serve the song. So there's places where I try to fill it up, and then there's places where you just stay with the roots, man. You don't have to go crazy. Don't start doing all kinds of weird stuff so that you stand out. I'm not trying to be like a virtuoso bass player. I'm just trying to put the right part in the right song. That's that's my goal.
Yeah,
And as a bass player, my approach kind of is I read an interview a really long time ago with Pete Townsend, and he was talking about John Entwistle
yeah,
playing the bass. And he said when he started playing bass, there really was no electric bass. It was just kind of invented.
yeah,
Everything else before that was an upright bass. So there's actually no rules and that's why John Entwistle is so unique as a bass player, because he really kind of invented how you're supposed to play electric bass in
Yeah.
some way, you know? So I use the same approach. I feel like there's no rules as to what you're supposed to do on the bass. Of course, I know music theory and, you know, I've practiced my ass off for years and years and years. But so you still need to do that, but technically there's no rules. You
Yeah.
can, you know, oh, you have to play quarter notes straight on this. No, you know, you can do whatever it is that you want and what works for you. And that's kind of what I do. I don't really, I feel there's no rule, and
Yeah.
that's my rule.
Yeah, for me, sometimes, when it comes to music, I like to hear every instrument
Yeah,
normal. And when I mentioned the 70s bands, I mean stuff like Deep Purple, yes,
yeah,
later on Rush and stuff like that, where you can hear all the notes, how it's
yeah,
playing. And sometimes in certain bands, metal bands normally, either the bass is really distorted and you can realize, okay, that's the bass, or it's
right.
just buried in the mix where
Yeah,
you really
yeah,
notice where the bass is, and it's just mainly guitars and vocals. And
yeah.
it kind of tires me and annoys me because the bass has such a great sound. If you can,
Yeah, and
that,
it's important. It's important too in the rhythm of the song and the feel of the song. The bass is actually doing two jobs. It's also doing the rhythm with the drums, but it's also doing the chord changes and everything with the guitars and the
yeah,
rest of the music. So it's kind of doing both things. So it's super important that it's in there. And people really don't give it the recognition that it deserves,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, I think I love as you can see, I love bass playing, and I think it's very important, and it needs to be heard more because
Yeah,
it has such a
yeah,
nice sound to
yeah,
it if you play it properly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah, yeah. And I'm a real purist. I don't use any pedals, anything. That's it. I just have a tuner and I plug straight into the amp and that's it. And
yeah,
that's my live rig. So it's really simple. It sounds great. It doesn't really need to do anything. Usually they'll take the bass and they split it with a direct box. So my one signal goes to my amp and that's what I hear on stage.
yeah,
And then I could also adjust the monitor so I'm not too loud on stage. But the other feed goes directly to the house. So my bass is coming directly out of the PA rather than going into the amp.
yeah,
So why? Yeah, I don't know. The bass itself just sounds good. It's a
yeah.
good sounding instrument. It doesn't really need much.
So for your when it comes to your live sound, really it's much easier than, I mean, you have less problems, I would say, than the bass players that have a lot of pedals and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the bass is a kind of except for like somebody like Billy Sheehan, okay?
Yeah,
He's all over the place and that's his style and it works what he does and the type of music he does. But everybody can't be Billy Sheehan. And then every song was like that. It would kind of be a little tiring, I think. Like people are like, why is this guy on the bass playing so much stuff? you know? But I don't know. To me, it's cool, and I think the simplicity of that. I am getting a little more into the distortion on bass. With the heavier songs, it actually sounds kind of cool, and it helps it to actually come through the mix a little bit more with the distortion on. I don't know why. It's usually the range.
yeah,
And if you are a bass player, the 400 range is actually the sound that's going to make your bass stand out a little bit
yeah,
more in a mix. So when you're boosting frequencies and stuff, check that out. 400 hertz.
yeah. But that's sometimes the thing when it comes to mixing a record. You really need to be careful with signals overlapping. You don't want to, like, again, like if a bass plays like probably too much with distortion, it probably overlaps the guitar as well. And
A
I
little
mean,
bit, yeah.
and those bands, they want the guitar to be heard. you know,
Yeah,
they probably
exactly.
fuck the
Yeah,
bass, put my guitar
yeah,
higher. And then
yeah,
that's how, sometimes the bass gets crunched and you don't, hear it.
Yeah, or the producers are just like, they're very guitar heavy, or
Yeah,
usually even look at that Metallica album where they remix the bass,
yeah,
and it sounds great with the bass boosted. It sounds awesome,
yeah.
but why didn't they do that in the beginning? Like, I
I
don't know.
it's yeah, probably served the purpose back then, and whatever
Yeah,
things they had in their head. But
yeah,
yeah, I think stuff with the bass clear sound, it's great.
yeah.
Do you go much when the album is being mixed? Do you opinionate much when it comes to that, or you just normally a happy guy when you hear the mixes because you're comfortable what the producer and what Hans does as well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at some point you have to trust the producer. There's certain things that I thought maybe we should have did that, and eventually, Hans being the producer, he has the final say.
Yeah,
So some things he listened to, some things he's like, nah, I feel it's better this way. So it's a give and take.
yeah,
You have to be willing to and appreciate that the producer, the guy who's mixing in and the guy who's making the final calls, he has the final say.
yeah,
And you have to say, okay, you have to trust
yeah.
that. If you'll just be fighting all the time and it'll be miserable. If you never agree with anyone, especially the producers.
I think you have to really, it's a trust. It's like a relationship. You have to trust the other person, you know,
Exactly.
even if goes against, something that you might feel strong about it. It's about commitment, that
Yeah,
person,
exactly.
you have to commit as well. And on this album, you mentioned "I Will Rise." "I Died Tonight" is one of the highlights for me. I
Yeah,
really loving that song, and "Falling" is another classic, almost rock and roll song.
yeah,
How about when you guys were playing that? I mean, this album, it's really, good from start to finish. Do you guys
yeah.
get that vibe when you were in the writing process and realizing, okay, that's really good stuff that we have in our hands?
Yeah, yeah. You know what was really funny? As the album started coming together, we were just like finishing a tour, and maybe we had some off days. So I was still in Germany, and the hotel I stay at is about maybe 2 blocks from Hans's house. So we'll meet up for coffee, and then we'll walk over to the studio or take bicycles or something to the studio. And so I call him the one morning, and it was pretty much when we were just about to start mixing or something. And he's like, man, he goes, I woke up and I came out, he's got a little patio outside. So he goes outside and he has his coffee and his cigarette in the morning. And he's like, and I'm sitting here and I thought I was in California going to the fireworks mix. He goes, it's so crazy. He goes, I like had a vision of like, I didn't realize where I was. I thought I was there for a second. And I'm like, whoa, maybe that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So
And
that was one thing that actually happened, but we knew when it was finished that it was good.
yeah,
Yeah.
you guys, a couple of years ago, you guys were recorded the first three Bonfire records. Did you
Yeah.
think, going through that material might have influenced, inspired, so to say, the songwriting for this new album?
No, not really. I think that it's a little bit of a view because that was the first recording with Diane, and it was really a last minute thing. I mean, he came in; all those audio tracks, everything was recorded already.
Okay.
And when Alex left the band, we needed somebody. We didn't want to release it with Alex's vocals, so we said, okay, we need a new singer. We need him right now, and he needs to sing all these songs now.
Yeah.
So when we got Diane, he sang those 3 albums in 2 weeks. He recorded all the vocals in 2 weeks, which
Right.
is crazy. That means we were doing like 4 or 5 songs a day, and he was just nailing them every day. We were doing it, and to the point where it was like, he's like, I can do one more. I'm like, no, man, listen to your voice. You're killing yourself. Stop. We have to relax. It's more important it sounds good. And I mean, the thing with those re-recordings, I'm not a big fan of re-recording an album because I feel it's a capture of time.
Yeah.
But the problem with this was we decided that we were going to make a documentary during COVID, and we started the whole process, and we got people involved, and the further we got into it, and thinking about putting those songs on there, like, you know, anything from Fireworks, Don't Touch the Light, Point Blank, anything from those albums, we don't have the rights to those songs,
Yeah.
the mechanicals. Like, of course, we can play the songs and
Yeah.
all that, but we can't take that recording and put it in something else and sell it, you
Yeah.
know? So that means we couldn't use any of those songs in our documentary.
Yeah.
Those are our three biggest albums. We need those. You can't tell the story of Bonfire without those three albums.
Yeah.
So we had to re-record it. We had no choice. It was the only way to get the rights back.
Yeah.
So then we could put those songs back into the documentary. And also those songs would be available now on iTunes and all these other places where they're not available.
Yeah.
So we figured the songs are so good. You know, let's pay a homage to it. Let's get the rights back. Let's do the best we can to it. Hans kind of said, you know, well, since we're going to do it over, I don't want to do it exactly the same as we did it. You know, I don't want to change stuff. And we couldn't change stuff. We're not allowed to change stuff. So there was just little things and sounds, basically. You know, we updated the sound. So the sounds were recorded from, you know, Don't Touch the Light is 1986 or something.
Yeah.
So technology 40 years ago compared to today, we're like, okay, well, let's just do it as best we can, keep it as real and as, you know, to the song as it was. We don't want to change it. We just maybe a little more power.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then people will get a vision of what Diane is capable of. And hopefully they'll realize that the next album will be good.
Yeah.
You know, but in some ways it kind of worked. In some ways it didn't work. There were a few people who were like, okay, that singer's really good. I can't wait to hear them on something real, you know?
Yeah.
And there were other people like, oh, this is horrible. Why did you re-record those songs? Diane can't sing. Klaus Lessman forever. You know,
Yeah.
it's the same thing that always happens. I mean, Klaus is a great singer. I love Klaus. The band was great. There's no,
Yeah.
you know, there's no denying. You know, I feel it's very unfair when people claim stuff like, hey, you're not Bonfire anymore. It's not Bonfire without Klaus. Well, Hans started this band.
Yeah.
Hans brought Klaus into the band. And it's like a football team. So one guy leaves and that's it. The team is done. It's finished. It can't be that. It just can't. And there was so many bands where the first singer, Bruce Dickinson, Iron Maiden, he wasn't the first singer.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's really sad when people just jump down these other bands through Queen's Ride, Great White, you know, all these bands.
Yeah.
They get really good singers and they're still the band. You know, you can't deny them they're the band. Okay, if there's no original members, it's a little wishy-washy. But if there's at least one guy that started this band or any band, it's still his band. How can you say it's not, you know? So those are the kind of things we deal with, but you know, whatever.
Yeah, you can never please everyone.
You can never please everyone.
Every time a band decides to re-record, and normally it's what you mentioned first, is to get the rights for the music back, because back then they signed a really bad contract and you know, they didn't realize what they were getting themselves into. And seeing people criticizing that band's re-record, saying like, oh, it doesn't sound as good as the original, but the purpose, it's different. The band needs the right to those songs. It's someone is taking advantage of an artist. It shouldn't be like that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, okay, I totally get it with the re-recording thing, but you don't have to like it, you don't have to buy it, you don't have to listen to it, you know, but don't kill the band because they did it. I mean, Udo just did the same thing, actually. I saw it today that he's releasing Balls to the Wall re-recorded. But he's doing it as a homage, and he did a little bit of a different idea. He had different guest singers for every song. So, okay, you know, I get it. I mean, I would love to hear new music from him also, but hey, that's a classic album. Those are great songs. I mean, I still prefer the original over the new one, but I'm not going to kill Udo because he redid that. You know what I mean? He did what he did, and he's got his reason, and it's his music.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
So who am I to complain?
he can do what the fuck he wants with it. People just need to, calm down.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you don't,
yeah.
you
Calm
don't,
down, people.
yeah, it's, I normally say that we have such a short time span on this planet to be focusing
Yeah,
on something negative. It's not worth it.
exactly.
We're getting fucking old. I probably lived more than I'm going to live that I have left. Why should I
Yeah.
go to be annoyed with an artist that decided to redo something because
Yeah. And then you're going to waste your time going on their video or their webpage and go, man, I hate this.
yeah.
For what? So what? Who cares if you hate it? What you feel like you needed to tell us that you hate it, and maybe we should cancel everything because you don't like it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm going to stop living because you don't like
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Fuck you,
yeah,
leave me alone.
yeah. I'm gonna give up everything. All
Yeah,
the years of practice and all the work we put into the band. It's it.
yeah.
It's done.
And
Let's forget it.
it's a crazy world.
It
Anyway,
is.
you are going to leave soon for a tour. And for the rest of the year, what are the plans for Bonfire?
Yeah, we're gonna continue the tour. We got about 20 dates in January into February. Then we have the Frontiers Festival in
Yeah,
April, and then in the summer we have a bunch of festivals. I just saw a whole bunch come in. We have at least two shows with Doro, and I think there's actually one festival where it's us, Doro, and Gravedigger, which would be cool. I mean, I love Chris. Chris is a great guy, and so that'll be really cool. And I haven't seen him in a while, so
yeah,
that'll be cool. And Doro, and her band is great. I love her band too. All those guys are so cool and funny. And Johnny D, man, I love him.
yeah,
When I met him the first time we played with Doro not long ago last year, sometime in the summer. And I'm talking, and me being from the United States and playing in a German band, most people are not from the United States, So when I run into somebody from the United States, I'm like, "Wow, hey, where are you from? What are you doing here?" And when I ran into Johnny, he's from Philadelphia, and I live right between Philadelphia and New York City,
yeah,
so I know both cities very well. And I could hear his accent. I'm like, "Where are you from, man?" He's like, "I'm from Philly," and I'm like, "Holy crap!" And then we started talking because a lot of people can't really relate to what I deal with having to travel back and forth all the
yeah,
time from the United States for months. I go for weeks, and then come back and forth all year long. And I was talking to him and I felt like he can understand this. And not only that, he said he's been doing it for 30 years with her. And I'm like, wow. He's like, yeah, finally I moved over here. Now I live here. I'm married and stuff and great. But it was just so awesome to meet him. And he's a great guy and a great player, and the band is great. And it was just cool to see somebody so close,
yeah, yeah,
so far away.
yeah. It's always, it's with me when I normally travel, within Europe. Obviously, I've been to the States a couple of times, but it's when I'm away from home, when I hear a Portuguese voice,
Yeah,
like you're
exactly.
like, it sounds, finally I can hear something familiar.
Yeah, yeah, and you're like, wow, that's so cool. Where are you from? And
Yeah,
then you feel a little connection because it's like, wow, I met you in a different country.
yeah.
So it's kind of cool. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Ronnie, thank you very much for your time. All the best for Bonfire. Higher Ground, it's an
Thank
amazing
you.
record. Really great rock and roll. Good to hear the bass properly on an album. And, hope to see you guys soon in Portugal or somewhere in Europe. Or
Yeah, I hope so. It's been a while since we've been in Portugal. I think we
yeah,
were in Soar. We did a festival like 2017 or something.
yeah, it's been
Or
a yeah,
yeah, it's been a while.
it's been a
It's
while.
been a
So
while.
hopefully
Yeah,
we'll see you guys here back soon. All right,
yeah, I
Ronnie.
hope so.
Thank you very much for your time. All the best and see you soon. All right.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you
man.
so much.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
Bye-bye. Bye.